ladies and gentlemen, to an all-new reaction and review. Tonight, guys, we are continuing the Dirty Harry series by checking out the second movie in the series. Came out in 1973. The movie is Magnum Force. Now, the only thing I know about this movie is that unlike the first film, where Dirty Harry had to square off against a serial killer, here he has to deal with a death squad made of renegade cops. That's really all that I know. I'm not sure exactly why these cops have gone rogue. I have no idea exactly how many victims they take. The only thing I know is it's basically going to be Harry taking on dirty cops. Well, dirtier than him. And I'm kind of curious about this one. Mind you, I also really liked the first one. I'm hoping for this one to be as good. But I also know that because it is a sequel, there's a strong chance it's not going to be as good, but it's going to at least be almost as good. And you know what, guys? And if we honestly can hit, and if we can hit even that, I will be incredibly happy. And the only way I'm going to find out if this thing is any good at all is if I shut up and I push play, and I'm going to do that right now. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out Magnum Force. Alright, guys, this honestly is just a little bit creepy. So, one of the first things we get to see Harry do is he's trying to take down a plane full of kidnappers. Like, it basically is like four guys who've held an entire plane hostage. Every passenger on this plane looks so fucking calm, it actually is kind of sort of unfucking nerving. I'm sorry, but if I was on a plane and a bunch of nut jobs came in with guns, I don't think I'd be fucking calm, you know what I mean? And we just saw a shootout. Now, mind you, the shootout was pretty good. I mean, it could have been better, and frankly, it's not as good as the gunfights rather, seen in the previous film, but it was still at least halfway decent. You know, guys, I'm really digging the story here. I just sort of wish that the pacing was just slightly better. This thing is kind of dragging a little bit. Mind you now, it seriously is not dragging to a point of ruining the film. It's just, I kind of wish that they, like, pick it up a little bit. You know what I mean? Ah, okay, you know what? Even though I know that was just a dummy that they, like, pitched out a window, the way, honestly, that it, like, banked off of that railing looked really sick. That actually was kind of nauseating, guys. Is anybody gonna answer that fucking phone? It's been ringing for about the last, I don't know, about 30 seconds. It's really starting to get annoying, guys. You know, guys, I really find it almost, funny that every single one of Harry's neighbors only knows him as the cop who lives upstairs. I totally understand that Harry is not exactly the most social person on the planet, but it just seems kind of funny to me that, nobody honestly knows him by name. They just know that he's the cop who lives upstairs. I just find that kind of funny. You know, guys, I honestly am not able to explain it, but there is just something about car chases in Frisco that are always just really fucking awesome. And this right here has been a really cool chase so far. Well, guys, that was Magnum Force. Let me shut that off. Okay, before I get started, I need to apologize about something. Because I, without really knowing it, I spoiled a major twist which this film has. At the very start of this video, I said that Magnum Force is about Harry taking out a essentially a fucking death squad of crooked cops. Now, I have to apologize because that, guys, is technically a twist, which is brought up at the start of the third act. And they're seriously, guys, is not even a hint at it being multiple people until the start of the third act, when it basically is brought up, and then the big twist happens, and sure enough, it actually is a group of these cops. And I feel kind of shitty having fucking spoiled that. However, though, I also am not the only one who spoiled it, because every single summary and fucking synopsis I found for this movie essentially just, like, blows that in the first sentence. Now, I also have to mention that I probably shouldn't feel too bad, because this movie is 41 years old, and I really think that there should be some kind of a statute of limitations on spoilers. So even though I feel a little bit guilty having spoiled it for you, the movie's also 41 fucking years old. At this point, I guess it's kind of supposed to be a commonly known thing. Anyway, I just sort of wanted to get that out there. One other thing I said at the very start of this video is I feared that Magnum Force would not be as good as the first Dirty Harry film, and it's not. However, that guys, is not me dumping on this on this movie. No, because it really is, guys, just simply the fact that Dirty Harry was a fantastic movie. And this one here is still good. It's just not as good. Now, let's talk about the writing. Writing here is really, really strong, but I do have a handful of real minor criticisms that I do have to make. One thing is that this film has tried to flesh out Harry a little bit more as a character, which is awesome. However, as they were trying to deepen him a little bit, they also carved off a little bit of something that was there in the first film, something I really liked. Because in the first film, Harry is an incredibly snarky smartass when he is not, directly doing business. And they trimmed off a whole lot of that, and he honestly is not as much of a snarky smartass here, which actually kind of takes away a little bit of his charm. Now, mind you, now he is still a fucking badass, and he still has one or two quips, but nothing here is really as polished or as good or as snarky as he was in the first film, and it just sort of feels a little bit lacking there. And also, one other comment about characters, and this is once more going to be a comparison between this one and the first film. The first film's villain, Scorpio, even though I was able to complain about the fact that he really doesn't work as a serial killer, and I went into painstaking detail on that, he was still a really awesome, really threatening character. And our squad of cops feel kind of sort of shallow. And the reason for that, though, is simply because they did not want you to know that it was multiple cops until the third act. So all of them had to look similar and sound similar, so that way you would think that they could very well be the very same person. And because of that, all of them seem a little bit lacking in terms of personality. And none of them are as threatening, none of them are as, oddly awesome as Scorpio. Mind you now, all of them are still kind of cool, but still, if I had to pick a movie with them or a movie with Scorpio as the villain, barring fucking everything else, if I just had to pick on villain, I would totally go with Scorpio. He just came off as a much better character. And they could have probably spent a little bit more time attempting to flesh out these characters, and it would probably have worked out great. However, though, as it stands, our squad of cops all come off as a little bit shallow. Now, beyond that, every other character here is fleshed out very, very, very well, and the writing here is really strong. One other minor complaint I have about writing is the pacing. And I know I've talked about pacing a lot, but this also is something which I have to bring up the first movie once more, because, guys, Dirty Harry, that thing just rocketed by on a very blistering pace. It was very, very quickly paced out, and there was almost no fucking, like, downtime. And in this film, there is a lot of downtime, and it really almost feels like padding, because guys, this movie is 2 hours long. And the fact that there's probably about 6, possibly 10 minutes of stuff that is just paced out really, really slowly, and could probably have been trimmed. It could probably have been trimmed or punched up or tightened a little bit. Shows me that we do have a small pacing issue here. Now, mind you, this honestly isn't a terrible pacing issue, and it certainly is not going to kill the movie. However, I do know that there are a lot of people out there who do not like films which build up slowly, and this one is kind of sort of one of those films. It is certainly a movie which builds very, very slowly. However though, once it actually builds up a proper speed, at that point, then it is just going. However though, it really does take a long time for it to finally reach that. And some people are probably going to be turned off by it, and I do have to warn that, because I do know people who are turned off by movies that that actually do go a little bit slow. So I do have to mention it, and it is certainly a small problem. However, it isn't huge, and if you're able to look past the small pacing issue, the movie here is awesome, and it really is a solid film. Now, writing here is pretty good. The acting here is also really, really solid. Camera work. I do need to comment on camera work, because there were a handful of shots, and when I say a handful, I'm talking literally only about 4 or 5 shots, which for whatever reason were just not focused correctly. And I don't know if that was just I'm not sure if that was how the film was shot. I don't know if that's some kind of a problem with my copy of it. But there was a very small number of shots where everything that was in the foreground is incredibly blurry, and it just looks sort of bad. And once more, guys, that is very, very few shots which are just not quite focused right or processed right on the Blu-ray, whatever the hell it is. There was something there, and it just felt a little iffy in terms of camera focus. And again, those are very, very few shots, and very few people are going to notice them. And the only reason why I notice them is because I look for those sorts of things. Why? Because I just do. And some people are probably going to notice those, and it's probably going to throw them off a little bit. And beyond those couple of shots, everything else here is shot perfectly, which actually is sort of what makes those handful of shots stand out, because everything else is filmed so well that to honestly have a couple of shots which are not quite focused correctly, it just looks out of place. And that really is my only comment on camera work. Is everything here is great except for a couple of shots which for whatever reason are not focused right. Otherwise, guys, sound mix here is good, the lighting is good, the soundtrack is good, everything else here is really solid. And once more, guys, the only genuine problems are just pacing, which is just slightly slow, and a couple of shots are not quite focused right. And beyond that, everything else here is absolutely solid, and I could totally recommend this, especially if you liked the first movie, because even though it's not as good as Dirty Harry, it is a fantastic follow-up. And I'm genuinely looking forward to checking out the third movie. I really want to see what else they can do with this character and with this series. I am absolutely loving the fucking Dirty Harry franchise so far, and I cannot wait to check out the next one. And with that, guys, we come to the close of another reaction and review. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and I will see you all in the near future. Peace.